unique quilt designs is fun, but having to do all the careful math needed to scale a project to fit on a 1/4-inch grid can get old fast. This is where quilt paper comes in. It lets you design a quilt top at the actual size of your project. What this means is that you can set the quilt paper page to the actual size of a quilt top, define the pieces at their actual finished size, and view how well everything fits right at the beginning of your design process. Quilt paper will create a sheet of graph paper that you can confidently reference as you plan your quilt design. Let's get started. I'm going to show you how to create a diamond graph paper using actual sizes. By setting the quilt paper grid at the actual size, there's no scaling calculations needed to figure the number or size of blocks. The approach in this example works with every graph paper. I do want to mention the diamond paper does require an in-app purchase. The cost is the same as the app and is included with the 5-paper purchase bundle that includes all the papers. My project is an on-point king-size quilt. The king-size quilt I want to make will have 15-inch drops on the sides and on the end. Based on my calculations, I'd like the quilt top to finish at 106 by 95 inches. To start, I'll tap Diamond, then Plus to open the screen to make a diamond graph paper. As with every graph paper, there's a large starter layout, and on the right is the toolbar. As my first step, I want to let quilt paper know the finished size of the quilt top. I'll do this by setting the actual size of the quilt in page settings. I'll scroll the page size picker down to Custom and input the quilt size of 106 across and 95 down. This sets the page to exactly the size of the quilt top I want to make. A close look at the layout shows the dotted blue line that marks the margins. This blue line can only be seen in page settings. Notice that there is a gap between the white edge of the page and the dotted blue line. Because quilt paper makes sure a grid never exceeds the page margins, the white frame shows how much the margins will control the size of the graph paper. To make the grid layout the same size as the page, I need to free the grid from the margins. To do this, I'll set all the margins to 0. Now that the margins are 0, they're out of the way, and the area available for the grid layout closely matches the page size. So now when I create my layout, I'll know it is the right size when it completely fills the page. Time to start designing my layout. A tap opens the diamond tool at the top of the toolbar. I want 60-degree diamonds, so I'll leave that setting. However, I will adjust the side length to 4. Next, I'll add sashing by opening the sashing tool on the toolbar and setting it to 1. It's time to step back and take a look at the layout and consider if I want to add a border. I can see the design with 4-inch diamonds does not quite fill the page. So the layout is smaller than the 106 by 95 that I want. Maybe with a few adjustments to the size of the diamond and sashing, I can get a closer fit. Slowly, I'll increase the size of the diamond. It looks like a 6-inch diamond centers a layout nicely. I really don't want to increase the width of the sashing, so now I'll look at adding a border. I'll tap a color for the border and start increasing the size of the border. I can see that a 2 3/4-inch border puts the design very close to the 106 width I wanted. So just how close am I to the 95 length? I can find out by going back to page settings. To start, I'll zoom in so I can more closely see the exact point where the top of the grid fits tight to the page. Gradually increasing the size of the top margin moves the blue line closer to the border. It looks like the difference is only 2 3/4 inches shorter, so I'm going to let that go. To finish up, I'll set the margins back to 0. I'll close the page setting tool and step back and look at the layout one more time. It looks pretty good. The layout is complete and ready to use. There are 2 possible next steps. 1, the layout could be shared as a PDF, PNG, or SVG file. To share the graph paper, open More in the top right corner. PNG and SVG are shared directly in that format. However, because a PDF has some options before it is shared, let's take a quick look at PDF. To begin the process to create a PDF, tap More in PDF. Open the PDF line width. I'll set it to fine and leave bolder lines on to make the lines just a bit easier to see. The PDF page has an advantage over the other formats because a scale can be added. To add a scale, tap Size Legend. Turn the switch on to see it, and then use the tools to adjust placement. To share the PDF, open More on the PDF page and tap Print to let iOS scale the PDF to print to an 8.5 by 11 page, or tap Share to export the PDF at its actual size. The other possible next step is to use Paint and quilt paper to plan your quilt design. One change you might notice is that the quality options are different. With scaled papers, there's a choice of 1, 2, or 3 quality stars. However, because this layout is just so large, the options had to be reduced to handle all the pixels needed to transform this grid into an image for painting. Don't let this put you off. Either will be good to work with. To start painting, I'll zoom in and add some color. To learn more about Paint and its custom color palettes, open More and Help for the Paint tutorials. And that's it. That's how to use quilt paper to plan large projects without scaling.